Every day I wake up to a new story.
Welcome, welcome. Good morning. Just joining us, sit back, relax, enjoy some tunes. My name is VJ Thursday. I'll be one of your co-facilitators today, and welcome to our webinar on finding balance. Shelly, there you are. Just as we're welcoming our participants today. So,
Hi. Welcome everybody.
yes, invitation. Grab a piece of paper if you have handy, a pen or a pencil, and share with us in the chat, and make sure you're to all attendees and not just the panelists. You can have the attendees. Make sure it's all attendees and panelists in your toolbox on Zoom.
Who is that singing? Okay.
Good question, Shelly. Yes, let me share that with everybody. This is actually one of our FNP program graduates, Miss Napoleon, and we love supporting Indigenous FNP students. So check it out if you're interested. Really, that's the link to her website. Barb, hello Barb, I'm giving you a wave. I see you have your hand raised and feel free to ask your questions in the chat. This webinar is just interacting with the chat. So we'll just have Shelly and I on the video. You'll be able to see our slides as we're going through it. For the attendees here, let's hear how are you have balance in your life. Yeah, Barb, your camera is not on, and that's just a different feature in Zoom webinars. This is just not everyone has their camera. This is a bit of a different interface than you're used to.
what you make of it, the place that you call home. I will feel the restlessness that lies deep inside. Twenty words from my father, no wish from my mother, and I'm on my way again. I can't help but wonder what I'll do tomorrow just to feel the same way. 20 words from my father, no wish from my mother, and I'm on my way again. I can't help
All right, who have we heard from so far? Katie, some days, Lily, I need more balance. Yeah, I can totally relate to that, Lily. I feel that there's days I could need more balance. Robin, struggling with balance. I tend to be 90% in the mental quadrant. Yeah, we'll get to that. The different quadrants of the medicine wheel. Shelly, right? Yeah, especially with a lot of computer work, I feel my physical well-being is suffers a little bit, right? It's like my back is a little bit hunched over. Yeah, that's a good one, Shelly. Well, let's hear from a couple more folks. If you want, in your chat, just change the 2 settings to all panelists and attendees. We love to make this as interactive as possible. And so please share your thoughts, and we're all going to be hands-on in today's webinar. And if you don't already, please grab a pen and paper. We're going to be having you follow along and doing your own medicine wheel. So please, I encourage you, grab a pen and paper before we get into it. You'll be doing a little bit of writing and reflecting on your own balance today. So it promises to be an interactive session. Connie, saying that feeling neglect towards physical well-being, I can relate to that. And Joe emphasizing the importance of balance, but busy with work and school. And Connie and Joe, one thing I will just remind you all, if you change your toolbox, when you go to click your send your message in Zoom, you can just change your toolbox so that it says all panelists and attendees. We do want others to see what the other attendees are saying. Otherwise, it's just me and Shelly who are seeing the responses. But if you want to just send something privately to me or Shelly, you can do that. Just letting you know that you do have that option to toggle who your message is going to. Shelly, what do you think? Should we get going here? We're about 5 minutes in.
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll pause the music. Hope that. Oh, great question, Barb. The toggle is right above your text box where you're typing your message. You'll see it says 2, and then there's a little bit of a drop down. It says all panelists and attendees. So just to switch it up, my encouragement is that you switch it to all panelists and attendees, that we can all learn from each other. You know, your question and your input is an opportunity for someone else to relate to it. So there it is, Barb. Now I see it says all panelists and attendees. So awesome that you switched that little toggle. And with that, let's start us off. So I'll just quickly introduce myself. My name is Vijay Terzic. I will be one of your co-facilitators today. In addition to being an instructor with the First Nations Technology Council, who has provided us this opportunity for this stream and webinar, I'm also a lifelong student and learner of the Balancing Act. And so I'm going to hope to share some of my experiences in my own balance with you all. And with that, Shelley, over to you for your introduction. And really nice to be doing this webinar with you, Shelley, again.
Thank you, Vijay. Gela Kasla, Nugodi, Hekwagila Ogalatlanacha, Hegams, Umpas Quinquin Kuligedzi, Abumpas Guantilog. My traditional name is Hekwagila Ogwa. I come from the Kwakwala speaking people. We're located on the northern tip of Vancouver Island, the adjacent mainland, and some of the islands in between. I have been living here on the Chomolchasan Reserve or the Capilano Reserve in North Vancouver among the Skohotmish people for 21 years. My father is Chief Robert Joseph. My mother is Donna Joseph. I want to start by acknowledging that the First Nations Technology Council runs and operates on the unceded territories of the Skohotmish, the Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh people here in North Vancouver and in Vancouver. And of course, acknowledging wherever you are in these new pandemic times. And since all of the programming has been online, we have people from all across Turtle Island. But before I'm going to ask you to share where you're from, I'm going to sing a song. And because today is about balance, like finding balance for yourself in your life, and really what that boils down to is loving all of you, all aspects of you, is real self-love. And so I want to sing you a song, a love song. It says, "So big is my love for you, I cry." So I'm going to start with that, and then I'm going to say a little prayer following it, and then we'll do a bit of grounding, and then we'll go from there. I'm just going to change my... There. Before I pray, I just want to say we all pray in different ways, and however it is you feel you connect to yourself, the spirit, the land, do that. Close your eyes, open your eyes, bow your head, look up, lay down, walk, however it is. Just pray your way. Creator, we thank you for another beautiful day here in the unceded territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh people. We're grateful for the Technology Council for providing safe places, spaces, and people for all Indigenous people to come and learn new ways of moving forward, to lifting one another up, to lifting our nations up, and to lifting all of our people up all together. We ask you to be with those who are suffering through this pandemic, being isolated, being alone, not being able to physically connect with our loved ones, asking you to be with those who are suffering from COVID, to be with their families, and to be with those who are grieving from all the losses. And we ask that you bless each of us on this webinar today so that we can connect and help each other heal all my relations. Next slide. So this is we acknowledge this is a Western form of a map, but we're all familiar with the territories and the lands. So maybe if in the chat you can introduce yourself and let us know where you are today, where you're coming from in Zoom. Like I said, I'm in North Vancouver on the Capilano Reserve, Khomolchison, on the unceded territory of the Squamish people.
Thank you, Shelley. And for myself, present-day Vancouver, the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, and you know, an honor to be grounded in this space. And thank you, Shelley. I always appreciate that grounding that you take us through, and reminder to care for ourselves, our land, and that connection between all of us and the land as well. And I was going to say, you know, as much as I love in-person meetings and having an opportunity to do this in person, it really is great. And just seeing from a few folks that we can connect from a large area online and, you know, and still feel connected, even though it is digitally. So nice that we have Craig, Erna, Joe sharing their locations.
Purchasers.
Excellent. Love to see all the sharing. You've toggled that all panelists and attendees. Great. Erna, I just want to, if you not intentionally, you can update your two so that it's all panelists and attendees right now. It's just going to panelists, and same with you, Rebecca. Just a reminder that unless you want to update, it's just going to the panelists, which is Shelley and I right now. So you can toggle that above your chat box in the Zoom window, so it goes to all attendees as well. Robin, Lily, look at all these great locations coming here, Shelley.
Yeah. It's amazing. If we were doing this in person, that we wouldn't be able to, I don't think, have this much variety from across the different lands and different territories. So this is really a gift to be able to connect with people from far and close and everywhere. Yeah.
I agree. You and I would have to be doing a lot of traveling to go and you know, cover all this territory. So really, really nice. You're right to say that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess with that, Shelley, I'll invite folks to keep those locations and sharing where they're from. Really appreciate it. And I'll jump into, you know, getting into a little bit of the webinar description.
Awesome.
Excellent. And thank you all. And thank you all for joining us and sharing with us where you're joining us from. And what exactly are you joining us for? Finding balance can be a little bit of an open-ended topic. And so what are we going to cover in today's webinar? Well, it's going to be an opportunity for you to reflect and for you to look at balance in your life. So you're going to reflect on your balance as a student, as a family member, as a student, as an employee. You're going to look at all the different responsibilities that many of us have to carry, sometimes feeling all at once. And we're going to be leveraging the medicine wheel. So historically, we're going to look at the traditional wisdom of the medicine wheel, one example of it, and how we can use that to help create that sense of awareness of balance. And so in our webinar, we're going to be doing it in a way that allows you to understand the concept of balance, understanding what is the medicine wheel, where is it coming from, and how can we use it. We're going to look at some self-reflection techniques. We're going to guide you through a technique of looking at where is my balance today. When I look at the medicine wheel, how is my balance in the mental, emotional, spiritual, physical? Take an assessment of how you're feeling in your balance today. And then we're going to look at strategies to develop balance. You've done this assessment, you have a sense of where I'm at, and with an attitude of kindness to yourself and love to yourself, and I would say minimal judgment, because we're always in this sort of internal circle, as the medicine wheel is, an internal circle in this dance of balance. But how can you look at what you're currently feeling today and what you might want to do differently? And so hopefully at the end of the webinar, you'll have a sense of awareness, but also what you can do differently to bring perhaps a little bit more balance into your day-to-day. And to do so, we're going to take you on a journey with a character that we've developed for this webinar. It's in fact based on one of FNTC's family members and Freya. Freya is in her first year of study as a post-secondary student. It could also be an FNTC program. I know some of you here have been taking an FNTC program. She's 22 years of age, a single mom of 3 sons. She belongs to the Musqueam Nation and is wanting to reconnect with her Indigenous heritage. She lives off of reserve. She was not raised in a Musqueam traditional ways of knowing, so she's feeling a sense of disconnect and not knowing how to perhaps leverage some of that traditional knowledge in her current way of life. She's finding the online learning environment to be challenging. Combine that with the demands of her son, daycare, other at-home routines, managing a household. She sometimes feels, and you might relate to this, she sometimes feels like giving up on herself and her educational dreams. At least until her sons are older, she thinks about putting, quote unquote, her life on pause. And so we share this story with the hopes that many of you, myself, Shelley, can relate to elements of this, and just really giving permission to reflect that perhaps we can be out of balance sometimes. And so with that, Shelley, to you to explain a little bit about Freya's experience, how she maybe learned to manage her balance.
Right. So Freya went to visit her elder, his name is Vic, over the winter break, and they spent some time together. And she told him about some of the courses that she was studying. And Vic suggested that Freya bring the medicine wheel into her life at school. And to be honest, that thought hadn't even occurred to Freya. I know for myself, you know, I got so bogged into, I want to do this right, I want to get good grades, and I end up in this tunnel vision and, you know, kind of forgot to reach into my tool bag of things that help me have balance in my life. So it's not hard to do, to forget and to have blinders on, to focus on one thing. And so I think that's why having the medicine wheel and being really intentional with it helps, not just do it over here and then come back over here. And then every now and then I'll look at it again, but to be mindful and to be intentional with it every day really helps. So her elder Vic, he spent many years working as an elder and knowledge keeper in an Indigenous workplace that emphasizes cultural safety and traditional ways of knowing. He facilitates workshops teaching the medicine wheel. He demonstrated the importance of implementing each aspect of the wheel into our daily lives in order to reach and maintain health and wellness. Freya has heard him many, many times and never grows tired of listening to Vic and learning from him. Next slide. So we have a question for you, if you can answer in the chat. We're going to be interactive like this throughout the whole webinar. So be prepared to put some answers in the chat, and we're hoping you're writing down things for yourself as well, notes to keep for yourself, and that you'll be drawing your own medicine wheel. In the end, we're going to have some exercises for you to do. So the medicine wheel, it's also referred to as the sacred hoop. We have the emotional or the yellow quadrant of the medicine wheel in this example. And that refers to connection to friends and family. We have the physical quadrant. Some people call it a piece of the pie. Be like hiking, walking, what you eat, resting. The mental quadrant in the white section, and that's the positive self-talk, the things you say to yourself on a daily basis. That really matters. And the spiritual, or the red quadrant in this medicine wheel, that's your connection to self and to spirit and to others. Like going to the water or going for a walk in nature. Those are some spiritual things that we can do. This wheel represents the circle of life. All of Indigenous teachings are circular. And oftentimes when we're out of balance, we have those blinders on and we're looking at and behaving from linear aspects. And so that's why it's a great reminder, and I'm going to keep saying it, it's a great reminder to have this somewhere out to remind you daily that we are to be whole, that we need to be considering all of these quadrants or these four aspects of self. And so once we're really mindful of each quadrant and that we're paying attention to each part of it, then that's when we're going to have true balance in our lives. And that's why we're here, just to give you some simple tools to help you move forward and do that. Next slide.
Excellent, Shelley. And perhaps I'll start off on this one and just making note of what folks are saying here in terms of a couple of you that have responded have heard of the medicine wheel, and that's great. And perhaps those of you that have, I'm wondering how many of you have had it at front of mind recently. Maybe you've heard it, and like Shelley has shared, and like Freya has shared, sometimes even though knowing about it, hadn't put it to use. And so great to hear that some folks are familiar. And if you're not, that's something that's fine as well. We're here to introduce it, to give you a chance to interact and see how you can use this to serve you. And so a little bit of positionality in this is that, this is just one example of a medicine wheel. In this case, FNTC's curriculum indigenization specialist had come across this particular medicine wheel during her travels and working relationships. And so this is a precious gift that she feels that she has learned and wanted to create and share with us in this visual that Shelley and I are able to present with you. So in this case, whether it's our FNTC curriculum indigenous specialist, whether it's myself, Shelley, we've all had different experiences, with the medicine wheel. Myself, for instance, as a non-indigenous person, it's always a reminder to me. I have all these books behind me, and a lot of them are sort of on topics of self-help and how do you look at life in a different way? How do you design your life? I'm reminded how much of them lend or use similar practices, that when you look at the medicine wheel, really is something that could be beneficial to a Western, to a non-Indigenous world. And so for me, I take great gratitude in being exposed to a skill like this, and allowing for myself to feel not only balanced with myself, but my balance with Indigenous people and balance with non-Indigenous people. So for all of you, whether Indigenous, non-Indigenous student or not, familiar with the medicine wheel, I think you all have your own positionality to it, and you can use it in the way that best serves you. And with that, over back to Shelley to share a little bit more about, in this particular model, the Coast Salish medicine wheel.
So, yeah, we want to acknowledge that there are many different teachings about, or how to talk about, the medicine wheel or the sacred hoop, and there's many different names for it. But because FNTC is here on the Coast Salish territory, we wanted to acknowledge that and honor that, the teachings from here. So if you see in the quadrants on this slide, the white quadrant, or the north, is recognizing the air, the people, the white-skinned people, the stars, midnight, death, winter, intellect, mind, animal, and sweetgrass. And that's all in the mental quadrant. The emotional quadrant, or the yellow quadrant in this wheel, is east. It has fire, yellow-skinned people, sun, dawn, growth, spring, emotional, heart, mineral, and tobacco. The red quadrant, or the south quadrant, which is the spiritual, has water, red-skinned people, moon, noon, birth, summer, spiritual and soul, plant, and cedar. I don't know about you, but I really resonate with that quadrant, or that piece of the pie. And the last quadrant, the black one, is west, and is the physical aspect of the medicine wheel. Represents earth, black-skinned people, dusk, maturity, autumn, physical, or the body, human, and sage. All of these, of course, can't exist without the other for that true balance. They all rely on one another. They're all interconnected. They weave in and out through each other. And that's how I believe the teachings bring balance, and teaches us how to imply it or apply it to ourselves personally. Yeah, and we do want to acknowledge that there are many, many different styles, different words, different visuals for this same concept, but really they all boil down to self-care. And when we start caring for ourselves, caring for the land, caring for others, caring for spirit, then we have a whole community of well-being if everybody's on that same understanding of love. We'll keep saying that throughout this webinar too.
And that's an excellent transition there, Shelley, that reminder of that self-care. And I also love the different sort of words and descriptions of each of the sort of pieces of the pie, if you will. And I believe the beauty of that is it allows you in your journey of self-love, in your journey of self-awareness, is to make meaning of it in a way that best serves you. And so let us do that. Let us start with our own, our medicine wheel. So the invitation is, if you have a piece of paper in front of you, and I've done this very recently as well. And so start to draw a circle. Give yourself space. You're going to be putting some content in each of those circles. So fill the full page if you can. Fill the page with your circle. Put today's date above it, March 25th, and label each of the quadrants. So we had emotional on the far right quadrant. We had spiritual on the bottom one, the south. We had physical in the west on the left-hand side, and you have mental on the top. And so throughout this webinar, Shelly and I will be giving you a little bit of an explanation, reminder what each of the quadrants are. We're going to dig into each of the quadrants and give you a moment as we go through it to just take pause and think about, hey, what does emotional balance mean for me today? What does spiritual balance mean for me today? And I see that Craig saying that red, which I believe is our spiritual quadrant, our soul quadrant, is resonating. And that's great to hear. And I think we're all going to find that we're being called or resonating to different quadrants. And so join us in this journey as we do this together and we go through it step by step. So Shelly, over to you. I think we've given them some time now to sort of set the stage for this medicine wheel journey. And let's take them through it quadrant by quadrant, or I like, as you said, Shelly, the piece of the pie. I can really relate to that, especially as we're over the lunch hour.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about each piece of the pie, and I do want to note, and I want for everybody to recognize that some things that you do for your spiritual well-being can also fit into your physical well-being or your mental well-being, and they all are connected and are intertwined. So it's okay to have something listed in one quadrant and it's going to be listed again in the other quadrant, because everything is all related. We can't really, I think, segregate any of these because it's all part of who we are as a whole. So first, we're going to be talking about the emotional. Hold on. Emotional well-being is being able to generate good thoughts for good emotions that lead to good feelings. So again, even in the definition of emotional well-being, it relates to other quadrants in this medicine wheel. So Freya understands that she needs to connect with friends and family. So she is going to Zoom call a friend or a family member once a day. And this is for her emotional well-being. So I'm just adding to my own medicine wheel too as I'm drawing and talking. And
Me too.
Yeah, I do this often because it changes with, you know, whatever's going on in my life. I might need something more one day, so I'll sit down and have a look. What am I doing now? What did I forget? What have I forgotten to do lately? And you know, my list changes as, you know, depending on whatever's happening in my life, really. So emotional well-being will minimize your self-talk. Those things that you have in your head of, I'm not good enough, or this is too much for me, or I can't do that, or I'm not brave enough, or there's so much negative talk in our heads, these irrational beliefs of you know, approval from others or pleasing others, and perfectionism is negative self-talk. You want everything to be perfect. I don't think there really is a perfect. There's your thought of what perfect is, and there's the reality of what we can do our best in each moment. Helplessness, victimhood, comparisons, expectations, and envy and jealousy. Those are all the things that suck the joy out of our life, that negative talk that we have in our head a lot of the times. This is to help minimize time spent with those who choose to suffer unnecessarily. You know, I've always told my kids that you are the company you keep. Like if you're around people who are negative all the time and doubting all the time and pessimistic all the time, then that's gonna become your daily thoughts too for yourself. So minimizing the time spent with the negative Nellies, we'll say. Hope there's an Nelly on here. I'm not talking about you.
Not that I can tell. Not if any.
This emotional well-being minimizes drama, and it honors you to express your feelings in healthy ways with healthy people. Journaling is a good way to help with your emotional well-being, and so that we don't bottle it up. Yeah, most people that I know keep a journal. Yeah, good for you, VJ. So that they don't bottle up and just stay in here, whether you're writing it down or you find a good friend to share with, as long as it's not just sitting in you, but to get it out in some form or way. A Post-it note in your bathroom mirror reminding you that perfectionism is a form of mental illness. Just those little reminders that you can put up different places in your house to be mindful and intentional about this exercise with the medicine wheel. And connecting with family and friends. Like I said, finding that safe person just to be with and talk with and share with and even listen to. I know I always feel better when I'm just listening to somebody because they feel heard and they appreciate that. So, you know, it's giving and taking. It's that real connection with somebody else. Next slide.
Well, that's a great transition, and I'm just particularly mindful of Craig's comment as you're saying that, Shelley is saying that drawing is my journaling, and that's a great point, and really this is the invitation for us now to invite you to look at what does the emotional quadrant mean for you. We've heard some examples that Shelley has stated, but what does it look like for you? And so, Craig, in your case, it is journaling, and so I just want to invite you to take a minute in your piece of paper. Think about what are some of those things that you're doing today, that you're presently doing, that you're practicing your emotional wellness. So just take a snapshot of where you're at today. What are you doing to practice emotional wellness? And so just give you a moment to do that. If you feel comfortable, we'd love to hear some examples in the chat. And Shelley and I can even share some of our own current day assessments of where we are in our emotional quadrant. Oh, look at that. I've seen a couple comments in the chat here, Shelley.
Nice, yeah.
Biking, writing, nature. Yeah, and that's, you know, biking could be for somebody, could be an emotional outlet. And you would think, oh, no, biking is only a physical outlet. And I think as Shelley was just saying is that there's this interconnection and this sort of no ending and no beginning, but it's this eternal circle, and that's fine. If you find that you get an emotional relief from biking by yourself, biking with friends, that's for you to feel that emotional relief there.
Yeah.
Connie, sharing an update on Freya. I recognize she currently is in post-secondary and minoring in visual arts. Joe, recognizing my emotions and not to get narrow-minded when I get upset. And Craig sharing, you know, one of the, if you can look at it that way, the benefits in the COVID world is that you can connect with family and maybe take a little bit more time to do that. We have less distractions, less social activities, not as much work for some of us. So yeah, thank you, Craig, for sharing that. Shelley, what does the emotional snapshot look like for you today before I share mine here?
Today, I sit with my oldest daughter. We're all together through the pandemic right now. So we spend a lot of time just sharing, you know, whatever happened in the day or, you know, what's going on with our family members that we can't be with. And yeah, so I'm able to sit down and have some really good quality conversations with her. I think that's the main today, is being able to talk.
No, I hear you, and I, as someone that's currently living on my own, I'm envious of those opportunities. So that's where I held up. You know, sometimes my journal becomes that sort of item I can talk to or journal into, and those moments where I can have some Zoom calls or some, let's say, a physical activity with a friend. That for me is a big emotional outlet. Well, that's awesome, and just keeping an eye on the time. Let's jump to the next quadrant. I appreciate folks sharing. And so looking at our next quadrant is looking at the spiritual. And Shelley, over to you on that.
The spiritual. So, the spiritual bowl is about our inner life. It's about relationship to ourselves and the world. It's about connectedness to, nature, creator, other people. To me, that's the definition of spiritual. And what Freya might do for her spiritual needs is to go near the water and give thanks. In this picture, she's by a creek. And here in North Vancouver, I often go to Ambleside and sit at the beach for that connection, grounding, that unwinding from the day. Some examples are spiritual strength, level-headedness, and resilience can be strengthened by cultivating healthy relationships and mindfulness. Dancing, that's the other thing I do. I have so many recordings of our traditional, I like contemporary dancing too, but traditional dancing, I'll just throw it on and dance in a living room. Doesn't matter if anybody's watching or not. It's just me and my kids here, so, and my dad. Creating art, crafts and music, drawing was mentioned before. And again, see, it's part of this one and it's part of the other quadrant, and they're both really relevant. Yoga, connection, church, sweat lodges, drumming, ceremony, time with nature, travel lightly on the periphery of the wheel with mindful breathing. All the time, I'm always talking about breathing. You'd be amazed how many times you forget to breathe in a day when you're stressed. Yeah, and so just taking like the 5 seconds to go. And to let your breath take the anxiety out of your body and let your shoulders drop or unclench your jaw while you're breathing. Just so simple, it doesn't take a whole lot.
And even as you're saying that, Shelley, I feel the invitation. You almost granted me permission to cue my brain to do that. And with that, I do want to invite folks, and again, just like we did with the emotional quadrant, take a look at what are you doing are some examples of how are you practicing your spiritual wellness. And again, as a reminder, dancing, sweat lodge, ceremony, prayer. And for me, this is a reminder as a non-Indigenous person, or perhaps for those of you that are maybe, you're Indigenous but don't feel as connected to your ancestral traditional, I think often the temptation is like, well, I'm not religious, I'm not spiritual, I don't have this element in me. And I think we're often quick to sort of dismiss it. But as Shelley was explaining, it's sort of that inner life. Maybe it comes through your connectedness in nature. If not creator, maybe it's more creator, less in nature. And so for you, what does that mean? What is that spiritual journey, that connection to the inner self? So take a moment, write it on your paper. And if you're comfortable sharing with us in your chat, we'd love to hear from you on the various examples. Craig, we have Craig. I really appreciate your participation, Craig, and sharing with us these great examples. Singing, yeah. My problem is I like to sing, but if there's someone listening, I get a little bit shyer about it. So, but it certainly is a great outlet, spiritually, as well. Barb, meditation, yoga, practicing gratitude for everything I have. Joe, taking a minute or two to sit in silence and just breathe. I mean, even just Shelley taking us through that one deep breath, like that had impact on me. I found myself holding my breath, listening to you, and so that was a reminder. Even that one breath, and in Joe's case, just 1 minute or two a day can be a way to just sort of pause and be mindful, connected to that inner self. Practicing attitude of gratitude, practicing an attitude of gratitude, attitude of gratitude. That's catchy, Robin. The attitude of gratitude.
That's one of my favorites.
I do like that one. I see a couple of people, Shelly, I mentioned it, Shelly, you mentioned it, but being in nature, for me, I put nature, nature, nature. It's certainly, I feel connected to something that feels greater than me. When I'm amongst the trees or amongst nature, it feels that I am one with something beyond myself. So I can relate to that. I do feel like I have this sort of an out of body experience. It's like you're part of nature. So nice to see a few folks saying I like to go out for a walk in the forest. Oh, listening to nature. Interesting. You just sort of listen, whether it's silence, but there is a distinct sound to nature. Okay, just again, being mindful of time. Keep those suggestions coming. If you didn't get them in the chat, put them on your paper. You know, this is for you to reflect on later and use it as needed. So Shelly, over to you to take us to our next quadrant of physical.
Just one more note on the spiritual, and something that Indigenous people are really good at is laughing. You know, it's got the breathing, the physical, it's usually with somebody else, or, you know, if you're laughing at yourself. I do that all the time, by the way. But laughing, I took some training years ago in laughing yoga. And yeah, it's a good workout to intentionally laugh for an hour and breathe and interact with other people. But yeah, if you can, Google some laughing yoga and do it. It's simple. It's funner with other people, even though you feel silly, but that makes you laugh even more, right? But I think that's a huge part of the resilience of Indigenous people is our ability to laugh. So I encourage that. Moving on to the physical, and laughing is physical. You know, I love to laugh. My face feels better, my stomach feels better, my lungs are cleared out, and yeah, people around me laugh when I laugh, so it's a good thing for me. So talking about the physical quadrant, Freya decides to stretch hourly in fresh air, getting enough sleep, eating healthy. She does activities to help with this quadrant. Freya decides to stretch. Some examples of physical activities are, you know, to create micro routines. I joined Vijay's class the other morning, and he had, I can't remember his name, but he came in to bring everybody through a quick 5-minute, you know, get up, breathe, stretch, flex some muscles, and you're done. That was amazing. Like, it changed my whole morning. My whole energy had changed. And I can imagine if I did that, every morning, which I should, and like I said, I've been lacking on my physical and I'm working on it, how different my days would be all the time. To get restorative sleep, resting is so hard. We tend to busy ourselves all the time or get so bogged, you know, with these blinders on, especially for school. I know I did, that it's hard to turn my mind off at night. So finding ways to get restorative sleep, to have a nutrition program, not to be on a diet. There's so many diet fads out there, but just to be mindful and intentional about what you put in your body. Is this helping your body regenerate, or is it, you know, bogging it down with all the artificial this and that, and, you know, sugars and fats, and I can go on and on. Relaxation, just to sit back and breathe again. Relax, yeah, put your arms up, think about nothing, or you know, like we said, just listening to nature. I love in the morning when it's raining really hard and I can hear it through the window. That's relaxing. Taking a walk daily, sipping water even, and to exercise, to move in any way, dancing, singing, however you get your body moving. You know, those are all examples of physical well-being. And the physical well-being isn't just the absence of disease, but ensuring health, ensuring our body gets everything it needs to function in a good way, so that we're not too tired, or we don't have illnesses that, you know, we can't do this and we can't do that, but to make decisions that are going to help our body heal itself every day.
Well, thank you. And just as you're saying that, Shelley, I'm sort of I'm tipping my cup to Trudy for just mentioning that the cup of hot herbal tea, and I would say that's certainly one of my well, for me, less so in the physical quadrant, but certainly probably in the mental, emotional. I do love a herbal tea. And on Shelley's point, so just an invitation again to think about, what are you doing to practice wellness in your physical quadrant? I see that Lily saying is an area where you need more work, but Lily, maybe you can just take a moment and identify where you are serving your physical wellness. Maybe it's moments of relaxation, and maybe it's a quick breathing exercise. Maybe it's, as Shelley is demonstrating right now, maybe it's keeping hydrated. You know, certainly it's, you know, taking in that nutrition to your body. And I think a lot of us perhaps are doing more than we give ourselves credit for. I have a friend of mine, he runs an organization. It's called 7 Movements, and it's all about encouraging these micro movements. And he calls them movement snacks. And so instead of getting up, maybe getting something sweet, you have a quick movement snack. And even with Shelley showing us with one breath, I'm always amazed by how maybe a quick couple of moves can rejuvenate the body, as we saw with Ready in 5. So I'm going to pause talking for a moment and just give you a chance to share, what are some of those physical wellness practices that you're doing on a day-to-day? Craig, sleeping is a hard concept for me, and show of hands, I can relate to that at times. Busy mind, eating unhealthy and drinking enough water is something I've been doing better on. And then relaxing at the end of the day. Yeah, I put my phone away for the last hour of the day, and I don't have it, so I can relax, sort of that distraction free. Lily, need to get out more from my physical environment, spending too much time inside. Yeah, it certainly is tempting with this online world. Robin, water, nature, bike walk, breath, stretch. Okay, that's a nice variety, Robin. Appreciate to hear that. And Craig, recognizing the need to stretch more because we are on our computers for longer periods of time. And I like that, the snap, crackle, plop. You're going to hear your body making those sounds, and it's your body telling you, thank you, it's alive, I'm here, and appreciate that movement. To keep those suggestions coming, Joe, just recognizing hiking and walks on the beach. And again, this is where we sort of see sort of that interconnection, as Shelley was saying, between the spiritual, between emotional, between mental, as well as physical. And so Shelley, back to you for our final, it's hard to say final, but I guess for the 4th quadrant in our medicine wheel.
So the mental quadrant. I do want to say on the physical, in the last 3 weeks, I've been Googling foods that give energy. And I've even Googled foods that help you sleep, like foods that have natural melatonin in it. So it's worth a shot.
Wait, Shelley, what are those foods? You just can't leave us hanging. You're not going to tell us what are the foods. Do you remember?
Shockingly enough, bananas is on the list.
Bananas. So before sleeping, bananas. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and some nuts. I think walnuts was on there.
Okay, yeah. Good to know.
I have to go read my list again. And of course, herbal teas. Yeah. I don't know, for a long time I'd be laying in bed and sometimes have chips while I'm watching Netflix. But also turning off your screens, like you said, you put your phone down, turning off your screens helps to start slowing the mind down and helping you sleep better. So the mental quadrant. This is realizing your own ability to cope with stress. You know, how you deal with everything in your life comes from your mental. So having mental well-being is kind of having control of your thoughts. You know, those we talked about in the emotional state, like I said, these are all connected, but those things that we tell ourselves daily have a huge impact on how we cope with stress in our life. So if you're being kind to yourself, saying you can do it, you're capable, you're smart, you're beautiful, you're loved, you're loving, all of those things, that's going to help you with your mental well-being as well as your emotional well-being. So some examples are Freya. She does journaling. So journaling was also good for the other quadrant. Where were we? It was the emotional, spiritual. So all of these quadrants, journaling can be a part of that as well. So Freya journals. She was having a meeting with her friends. Some other examples of mental well-being are meditation, walk on uneven surfaces, and that engages your brain and your physical well-being as well. So again, more connection. Balance, solitude or isolation, being alone, to be quiet with your own thoughts, to be intentional with your own thoughts. Learn to dance or learn to play a musical instrument. Learn a new language, read. Books are amazing to strengthen or to flex your mental muscle. Engage in stimulating and thought-provoking conversations and to listen wholeheartedly. I call that active listening. When you're sitting across from somebody and they're sharing, to just listen and turn off any of the things that we normally do in conversations, like, oh, I'm going to reply by saying this, or I'm going to help by doing that. But to really just to sit back and listen to whatever the words that somebody or the feelings that somebody else is sharing. It's not an easy thing to do. It has to be really intentional. And it's the greatest gift you can give another human being.
So Shelly, you're saying I can't be texting somebody else while also intentionally listening to you. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
And now, and I'm just mindful of our timers. We're getting we're having too much fun, Shelly. We're just almost at 1 o'clock. I know there's a few people that have had to step out, but Shelly, I'm okay to go a few minutes longer. We can maybe we can fast track our little bit of exercise for the students, but our tech support, as long as our tech support can give me a thumbs up in the chat that they can go a little bit longer, I'm happy to. Okay, just got a verification. So Shelly, maybe we'll take just a little bit longer. We can I know we're having a lot of fun on this topic and a lot of great feedback from folks, but with that, we've covered almost all the quadrants, and just taking a moment to think about that mental quadrant. How are you practicing your mental wellness today? Is it meditation? Is it reading? Is it engaged conversations? As Shelly was just saying, it's that intentful listening, not just that you listen to somebody else, but perhaps expecting that in reciprocation, that someone is truly listening to you. And so share that with us. And if you can't stay past 1, that's fine. Thank you for joining. We will share a recording of this on the forum, and so you will see that. But welcome to stay a little bit longer if you can. New languages. Oh yeah, that's a great one. That's a great one, Craig. I always have a fascination with new languages. For me, it's connecting with my traditional language a little bit more, Serbian, Bosnian, and learning and practicing that, because I've fallen out of practice with it. And so even doing that, I find is a nice practice. And Shelly mentioned it. I have my bookshelf here, so I'm a big fan of reading. Try to do a bit of reading every night. And that's sort of how I replace my technology use. I put the phone away and I pick up the book, and that less screen time, it allows my mind to calm down a little bit more before I sleep. Trudy, avoiding the news. Yeah, we know the news can be quite heavy at times, especially in this pandemic. Craig, listing off a couple of the languages that he speaks: Filipino, Spanish, Japanese, and learning his own language from his father. Wow, that's quite amazing, Craig, that you're taking on that initiative. I've been getting into a habit after my morning stretch. I do a quick moment of gratitude and appreciation and prayer. And so that's something that I can do as well on an ongoing basis. Perhaps some of you do that as well. And again, just to speed things up, I'm perhaps going to assign some of this for you to work after the webinar. So as long as we can give you some of the tips for what to do. And so the invitation would be after you filled out your quadrant is rank each quadrant on a scale of from 1 to 10. 10 where you're feeling really proud and amazed at how you're doing in each of these quadrants. And so it'll look something like this. You're going to have your different activities, and then you'll also rank the quadrant there. And just take a moment. How do you feel? Are you surprised? Are you doing more in a quadrant than you thought you were? Are you doing less? Just take an assessment of that feeling as you sort of look at how is your balance today in your day-to-day life. How is your balance? Again, leaving that for you to do on your own. And maybe now Shelley can take us back to Freya and taking us back to what does that balance look like? What are some of those things that we can be doing to bring that balance?
Mm-hmm. So in Freya's medicine wheel, on the top, she has a book open. So reading and journaling, I know we're on her list. In the emotional quadrant, she has the little sticky notes by her mirror, just giving her some self-affirmations. She was sharing with her friend on Zoom. She went to her elder, Vic, for his advice. In her spiritual quadrant, Freya went to the water just to feel connected, to get grounded again. And in her physical quadrant, she was making healthier eating choices, getting good rest, getting some exercise. And again, all of these can be, mixed and put in other quadrants as well. So I think Freya has a really good and attainable goals in all of her quadrants. That's the key too, is to make sure that these are attainable. They're things that you can do, and they're not grand. They're just nice, simple steps to take towards well-being.
And I think, Shelley, that's a great transition to our invitation for the folks here to think about what are those attainable changes. And I think that's a great point, Shelley. And I know that myself, I'm guilty of this. And you talked about this perfectionism. It's like, oh, I'm going to do this balance. I'm going to do the medicine wheel this one time. I'm going to implement these changes and I'm done forever. And so perhaps, the question is this a one-time thing? And the answer is no. I think it's a lifelong journey. The wheel is designed on the concept of eternity. There are no beginnings and no end. And so it's continuing to reflect on this journey to make those changes. So as we saw with Freya, it was a small attainable change. Like maybe it's spending 5 minutes more reading a book. Maybe it's trying to get out to nature once a week, once every 2 weeks. So make sure that when you look at what are some things to find your balance, you're able to do it so in an attainable way and minimize that judgment, that stress on yourself, that perhaps your physical quadrant isn't as high as you want it to be. But hey, step one is that awareness. Step one is that idea that I can and want to do a little bit differently in this. So again, for your homework, in the interest of time right now, I will be sharing these slides as a PDF. So you can look at the PDF as a reminder as to what you need to do. And so I want to pass it on to Shelley just as a bit of a reminder of what that self-care looks like and to take us through our closing in the next couple of slides.
So consider how the medicine wheel approach might serve your efforts to create a more balanced life. The gentle, non-judgmental wisdom inherent in the lessons of the medicine wheel can guide your decisions and redirect your energies. And that's the key there, is being able to redirect whatever the chaos is in your life, to redirect it to how are you going to take care of yourself in that moment and on that day. If you think of the medicine wheel as an actual wheel, it's going to turn really easily. It's going to roll along really easily. But for a long time, I focused on my mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being, and I neglected a lot of my physical well-being. So my wheel wasn't rolling along very nicely. It had a little bump in the road every time it got to the physical part. And then I had to work harder on all the other parts to compensate for that. And then they got more out of balance. So once you find the balance in all of them, your wheel's going to roll along a whole lot better.
And just a reminder to that self-care. I know that I've had this experience in the past where I thought it's selfish of me to take care of myself. And reminder that, you know, that care for self is not selfish. I think if you have that alignment, if you have that balance, it will allow you and enable you to care more for the others that you do want to care. And so it's by taking care of yourself to maintain your physical, emotional, and the other elements of the wheel that is important. And just before I hand it back to you, Shelly, for a bit of a closing, reminders that, you know, next steps in this, well, join us. You know, we're going to have a live, this month, not live, we're going to have a continued discussion on the Streaming Technology Council Forum. So we have a discussion forum on there. You're welcome to join us. I'm going to be sharing the recording on there. I'm going to be sharing the slides on there. And if you have any follow-up questions, that'd be a great spot to not only connect with myself and Shelly, but perhaps to the other attendees here as well. And so with that, I do appreciate everyone sticking around just a little bit past our intended 1 o'clock time. And you know what? We got to roll with it, right? Shelly, we have to roll with this session. And so, Shelly, back to you. Just before I want to say thank you for all the folks at FNTC, Katie, Robin, Lily, Connie, for doing all the work to provide the slides to get Shelly and I, you know, best positioned to deliver this slide. So thank you all. And Shelly, if you can just sort of take us as a closing and wrap it up, that'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah. Attitude of gratitude, that was said earlier. Simple ways of praying. I taught all of my kids from a young age, we'd lie in bed and I'd say, "Dear Creator, thank you for Stephanie," who's my oldest daughter. And then she'd say, "Dear Creator, thank you for Mommy." And we go back and forth. That was our whole prayer, just being thankful for people, places, and things in our lives. So if you struggle about praying, that's a simple way to start. Just being grateful for things and acknowledging that. I want to say that all of this, the medicine wheels, you know, the different versions of the medicine wheels are all talking about self-love. And when you can love yourself that much to care about, you know, all the quadrants, all the pieces of the pie, it's going to affect how all of your relationships with other people in your life, and it just gets better. So be really intentional. Hang your medicine wheel up somewhere where you're going to see it every day and go, "Oh yeah, I better do that today." So keep it simple. And I'm grateful for this opportunity to talk about tools and the medicine wheel and loving yourself. And so that's my ending prayer. Creator, thank you for this opportunity to share the teachings of our ancestors to help all of us move forward in good and healthy ways. All my relations.
Awesome, beautiful. Thank you, Shelly, and thank you everyone for sticking around and joining us today. With that, we're signing off, and goodbye. Thank you, Shelly. It was great to do it. Okay, that's the end of our webinar. Take care. Thanks, Trudy. Thank you, Greg.